That's what Oprah Winfrey wants her legacy to be. But guess what? It's not.
What?
It's not, Mrs. O.
Ooh.
Because you were snookered by the biggest liars in history. And you're now trying to backtrack on those lies because you know that your reputation was shot the moment that you allowed Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to try and bring down the British royal family with a tissue of untruths.
I tried so hard.
First, she reveals the interview. She hit back at suggestions that the couple didn't know what they were going to be asked. She then admitted that she had told Prince Harry and Meghan that this was all about a win-win. This is going to be good for you guys, and it's going to be good for me. So they sat down to film for the 3.5 hours, and Oprah thought that her career legacy was set. Instead, as we'll soon see, she's now desperately trying to explain why she encouraged Meghan Markle's lies rather than challenged them.
Everyone remembers that interview as a brave princess opening up to a trusted friend. But according to the way some viewers now talk about it, it may have been something very different. Two highly strategic women in a rented California garden, each getting exactly what they needed from the moment. And this week, 5 years later, that messy little setup is starting to unravel in public. Watching it fall apart has clearly caught the internet's attention.
They didn't know, obviously, anything that I was going to ask them, but I had said to them ahead of time, I'm going to try to cover everything. This interview took 3.5 hours. And as is always the case for me, I was just trying to carefully go through everything that had come up in the past.
No, you weren't. You were just admitting that you wanted it to be a win. You weren't talking about it being a win for truth or a win for journalism or a win for the British royal family. You were talking about it being a win for Harry and Meghan and...
It happens every single time. A clip resurfaces, a headline gets rewritten with a slightly more dramatic verb, and suddenly the entire internet is acting like something brand new just dropped. That's exactly what's happening right now with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's 2021 sit-down with Oprah Winfrey. A conversation that happened years ago that's been dissected 1,000 times over, and that somehow keeps finding its way back into your recommended feed like it aired yesterday. So before you get swept up in another round of you won't believe what was really said, let's slow down, take a breath, and actually look at what's real, what's recycled, and what's just noise dressed up as news. Welcome to Royal Truth Desk, the channel where we don't chase the headline, we check it. Let's rewind for anyone just tuning in, because context matters more than the algorithm wants you to think. Back in March 2021, Harry and Meghan sat across from Oprah Winfrey in a conversation that was, at the time, one of the most watched interviews in modern royal history. They spoke about their decision to step back from official royal duties, their experiences with press coverage, and what life looked like for them after leaving that world behind. It wasn't a leak, it wasn't a rumor, it wasn't something pieced together from anonymous sources. It was a direct on-camera conversation watched by tens of millions of people in real time. And whatever you think about what was said, that part isn't up for debate. It happened, it aired, and it's on the record. Here's the thing about interviews like that one, though. They never really go away. They live in this strange internet afterlife where they get resurrected over and over again, usually with very little actually new attached to them. Sometimes it's an anniversary. Sometimes it's a royal commentator saying something spicy on a talk show. Sometimes it's a completely unrelated story about the family that somehow gets stitched together with old footage to make it feel connected. And when that happens, the clips start recirculating, the quote tweets start flying, and suddenly people are relitigating a conversation from years ago, as if it just happened this morning. That's not us being dismissive of the story. It's us being honest about the pattern. Because if you've spent any time in this corner of the internet, you already know. The resurgence is rarely about new facts. It's about renewed attention. And that's exactly where we want to draw a hard line, because this is the part everybody skips. There is a massive difference between what was actually said in that interview and what people are now claiming was said, implied, hidden, or finally revealed. What was said is public record. You can go watch it right now, word for word, and nobody can spin that away from you. But claims about secret meanings behind a pause, timelines that supposedly don't add up, reactions from insiders who are never actually named. That's not reporting, that's speculation wearing reporting's clothes. And speculation spreads faster than fact, because it's more exciting, it's more dramatic, and frankly, it's easier to make a thumbnail out of. But easier to click on doesn't mean truer. That's the whole game plenty of channels are playing right now, and it's exactly the game we refuse to play here. So let's talk about the online reaction itself, because that's honestly become its own story at this point, almost bigger than the interview itself. In the years since it aired, public opinion on that conversation has stayed split, and both sides are loud about it. There's a large group of people who saw that interview as an important, credible account of what the family went through. A rare moment of two people speaking candidly about their experience, instead of having it filtered through palace statements or tabloid headlines. And then there's another group who've raised pointed questions about specific claims made during the conversation, wanting more clarity, more context, more verification. Both of those camps exist, both are vocal, and both deserve to be represented accurately, not flattened into a caricature to make one side look unreasonable and the other side look like victims. That's not truth-telling, that's just picking a team and dressing it up as journalism. And look, we get it. Nuance doesn't trend the way outrage does. Here's a balanced breakdown of a years-old interview doesn't hit the same as exposed, what Oprah really knew. But that's precisely the problem, isn't it? The incentive online isn't to be right, it's to be loud. Channels aren't rewarded for saying, actually, we don't have confirmation of that. They're rewarded for implying something juicy and letting your imagination fill in the rest. That's how you end up with an entire ecosystem of videos built on vague phrases like sources say, insiders reveal, and the truth finally comes out, none of which are ever actually followed up with a name, a date, or a receipt. If a claim can't survive being specific, it probably shouldn't survive being published. Full stop. That's the standard we're holding ourselves to on this channel, and it's the standard we think more royal coverage should be held to as well. Not because the story doesn't matter. It clearly still does, given how much attention it keeps pulling years later, but because the people at the centre of it are real people whose actual words and actual choices deserve to be represented accurately, whether you're a fan of theirs or not. You don't need to invent a scandal to make this story interesting. The real version, two people stepping away from one of the most scrutinized institutions on earth, doing a globally watched interview about it, and living with the fallout of that decision for years afterward, is already compelling enough on its own. It doesn't need embellishment. It needs clarity. So here's where we actually stand on this, plainly and without the theatrics. What was said in that interview is fact, and it's fully available for anyone to watch and judge for themselves. What's being said about the interview right now, the reinterpretations, the hidden meaning claims, the vague insider gossip, deserves real scrutiny before you accept it as truth, no matter how confidently it's presented or how many times it gets reposted. We're not here to tell you Harry and Meghan were right or wrong, saints or villains, victims or opportunists. That's not our job, and frankly, anyone who tells you it's that simple is trying to sell you something. usually a subscribe button attached to outrage bait. Our job is to slow the story down long enough for you to actually see it clearly, to separate the documented from the assumed, to call out speculation when it's being framed as revelation, and to keep doing that every single time one of these stories resurfaces. Because if history's shown us anything, it's that this one absolutely will resurface again, probably sooner than you'd expect. So here's what happens next. We keep watching this story, and if anything actually new and verifiable comes out, a real statement, a real document, a real on-record quote, we'll bring it to you straight, clearly labelled as confirmed. And if it's just more recycled speculation dressed up as breaking news, we'll call that out too, because that's the entire point of this channel. If there's a specific claim you've seen floating around that you want us to actually dig into and fact-check, drop it in the comments below. We read every single one, and some of our best breakdowns have come straight from viewer requests. And if you're the kind of person who's tired of getting fed outrage instead of information, who wants the actual story without the manufactured drama bolted onto the side of it, then you're exactly who this channel is for. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us for the next one, because the headlines are only going to get louder from here, and somebody's got to keep them honest. This has been Royal Truth Desk. We'll see you in the next video.